All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Canada Hoops. It's your boy, Maddie. Thank you for your continued support. Please keep downloading and sharing us. Visit our YouTube channel. Hit us up on Instagram and X.com. Our incredible guest today represents Toronto, Ontario. He is a Hummer Hawk and has been the team manager of the senior men's national team for Canada basketball since 2017 and has been all over the program for what seems like forever now. He is James DePoe. James, thanks so much for joining us on Canada Hoops, man.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to reminiscing and coming up with seeing if I can reveal some fun stories and some gems of my time.
Yeah, us too, man. I mean, that's what the listeners love, and of course myself and anyone that really follows the program, I think knows you and knows a bit of your story and just you know, time in now, definitely some longevity and impact too. I know just speaking with others that have spent time at the program or key pieces of Canada basketball themselves reference you and they're like, this is a guy you got to get on. He's got to share his story. So we do appreciate it. How are things, man? Just let our listeners and the Canada basketball community know how you're doing. Just kind of what life's like right now.
Things are good. Things are good. I mean, and funny enough, here we are. It's Blue Monday, isn't it? This is the worst, the lowest day of the year, according to some experts. Of January 20th, it is cold. I mean, it's cold today in Toronto, but things are good. I'm in my office here at Humber, in the athletic department. I had a nice weekend with I just helped my mom move.
Nice.
My son's birthday. He turned 6 a couple weeks ago. So hanging out with him. We're having his birthday party next weekend. My wife, she's an assistant coach here at Humber. She played her 5 years of post-secondary basketball here. So obviously I'm a big fan of our basketball programs here, and they played on the weekend. So I watched the game and yeah, no, everything is good. The Humber teams are doing well here. We're traditionally pretty strong program in Canadian collegiate athletics. So yeah, life's good, and looking forward to getting back with Canada basketball next month for the next window.
Yeah, is there like planning underway with that? I would imagine on your end for sure, just getting things ready, but also just everyone involved with the team. Like, is there a lot of constant conversation and communication right now?
Yeah, so I think I've been lucky enough over the years with most of all the operations people that I worked with at Canada Basketball, who are they're full-time staff at Canada Basketball, but they've been great at involving me in a number of things. I'm a contract guy. I'm a fly-in for the windows and for the tournaments and stuff. But yeah, there's constant communication. So I have a group chat with our ops people. Sebastian Arnold now, who's the director of basketball operations. He and I are constantly talking. I mean, we're friends as well. And talking to Phil a lot, and also I get to see them because Humber, we host a lot of things here at Humber as well.
Right.
So I see those guys when they're coming in the building. So yeah, there's always nuances for each trip of where we're going and how we're getting there, and depending on the schedule. So we talk about all those things, and we've got some pretty well established practices with our operations now, and I think it's a testament to the people who have helped to create that environment, and then that a number of us are committed and we keep coming back, so we hit the ground running. I think it's similar to how you would look at putting a team together. You want the player continuity because sets and structure and things like that, you want them to be able to keep building every time. And I think that our operations group with Sebastian, and then Kayla Minot, who's the coordinator of basketball operations at Canada Basketball, Sam Gibbs, who's a longtime integrated strength team athletic therapy lead, our Dr. Philpott, Christian Vargas, who's been an athletic therapist for as long as I've been around as a manager as well. Like all of us on that side of things have been involved with the program for such a long time. So we're very close knit. We know how we work with each other, and so we're always constantly communicating and starting to look at the schedule. And okay, so the players are arriving by this time. Should we get on the floor that night? What time should we eat? Like all of those things are happening, and so we have a lot of templates that we can plug and play based on our experience and how it can be applied to all these different circumstances. So yeah, all that's well underway, and the full-time staff and whoever's the intern right now at Canada Basketball will be busy making sure that all 22 equipment bags are packed and ready for going to the Dominican.
Yeah, see, like that's the cool stuff behind the scenes, and the planning and the prep and the nuggets that people love. That's really cool. So, you reference just kind of the busyness at Humber right now, and it does it get to be a tough balance? Like I know there's obviously downtime on the Canada basketball side, but we are approaching that window and it's getting closer and closer. Like, are you feeling like there's always stuff on the go between both programs that you have to get done?
Yes and no. I think it so I guess going back in all my time with Canada basketball, like the FIBA structure change,
Right.
I think has there's been a happy meeting point of my experience and then the FIBA change. So going back to say 2010, that was my first summer. I went to volunteer at a training camp. It was a development team practicing at Kerr Hall, downtown Ryerson, the former Ryerson LTMU, and they were supposed to travel to Europe, and they had a team manager, but then that person was affiliated with the Raptors. Raptors go on strike. They turned to me and they say, "Can you go?" Yeah. And so in 2010, I had been involved in Humber's basketball program for about 6 or 7 years of that time. I started as a student team manager and then became an assistant coach. And so it was actually our former head coach who had done Humber's former head coach, Daryl Glenn, who's now at UPEI, had recommended me to the Canada basketball people saying, "Hey, I got a guy who's really good at ops, just, get him involved." That's how I ended up volunteering at the training camp. So that experience, compared to what we do now, vastly different, obviously 15 years later. So they asked me if I could go. I came to my boss here at Humber, who the athletic director, Doug Fox, who really built the program here at Humber. But Humber's always had a relationship with Canada basketball for a number of years, going back to the 90s. So, Mike Cates being the former head coach of Humber, assistant coach with the national team, and the president of former president of Humber College was on the board of directors with Canada basketball. So there was always this really good relationship. So there were training camps happening here. So Humber's always been a great supporter. So when I came to Doug at that time and asked him if I could go, he said, "Well, heck yeah, you're going. Don't worry." It was summertime. He said, "Don't worry about work here. We'll figure it out. You're going to go on this trip." And for me, the rest is history. That he was supportive of that opportunity. So my superiors here at Humber have always been supportive, and they've always viewed it as professional development for me to be going with Canada basketball. And I've really, I've been able to take a lot of things that I've learned over the years and try to integrate them back into our program here, not just, obviously with our basketball programs, but I think in our varsity program and our department as a whole. So it used to be a lot easier because, like I said, it was a 2-year cycle. You had a qualifier in the summer, and then you had a championship in the summer, and a qualifier and a championship. And so It was easy to do it in the summers. But then, and I gained more experience, and I did I did a couple years of that development team. 2012, I was with our U17s in Lithuania as the team manager. That was my first. When I did that development team trip, we played. In 2010, my first ever trip, we played 6 games in 8 days in 3 countries. Yeah. And I have obviously we didn't travel as heavy. I only had a few equipment bags to deal with, but I had this big binder paper that had all of our itineraries and printouts and hotel stuff and passports and everything. That's all digital now, right? And we obviously have increased our group. We've increased our staff, and probably quadrupled the amount of equipment bags we travel with. But what's been consistent in my 15 years is even going back to that time. I remember we landed and I was kind of running around the airport, didn't really know. I said, I got to go find the team bus, but I got to wait for the bags to come out. And Leo Rounds is the head coach, and Leo's just like, James, go find the bus. He's like, I got it. I'll watch the bags. And it's always been like that, right? Our staff, not just our ops staff and our therapy staff, even our coaches, everybody's always been helpful, no matter age group or senior team or whatever. So sorry, it's a long answer to your original question, but
we love it.
That was kind of the process going through 2012 U17s, and then 2013 I moved up to the U19s, and that's when I was with Roy, and Roy ran I heard I listened to Phil's podcast the other day, and he spoke about Roy's ability to give the sense of urgency that you approach things with. And Roy was very good at the macro overall program. How are we doing things? Why are we doing things the way we're doing things? And so it really, really helped me learn a lot in my manager role about the entire operation and how the group moves and how we do things together. And so that helped me get to the senior team in 2017. And then, things started to get a little bit better. We moved from Matt York, who used to be the manager of basketball operations at Canada Basketball, was a great mentor to me. And he moved on to work for Athletics Canada, and now works for a large sport travel agency called Pivot that works with a number of professional teams. And Jeremy Cross was the team manager of the national team at that time, and I think he's the executive director of Coaches Association of Ontario. So two great mentors that help. I would do the junior team, I would be the lead, and then I would go help with these senior team training camps all those years. And I did a couple senior team trips, 2014, 15-ish. So I got to work with Jay. And again, learning from all these different coaches. I've worked with so many different coaches. So when changes happened in Canada Basketball, Matt York moved on, and they hired David Grunman, who came in to be the coordinator of basketball operations. He also took us to another level of operations with how we travel, how we move, how we pack, what we pack, things that we needed to put in place, amenities that we needed for the players. Are we going to have airport lounges? Are we going to get them the better seats and the better flights and all this type of stuff? So started really digging into how they use the limited budget. And we continued to increase our human power, which just allowed us to do different things. So then the shift happened in FIBA, going to these windows, but Humber remained supportive. And despite my full-time role here and now having a September or November or February window with a 10-day hit, they were still giving me, the ability to take my vacation from Humber. I use my vacation days to go work for Team Canada. And so I always get people like, oh, you get to go and do this and go all over. I say, yeah, I leave my hotel room at 8 a.m. and I don't see it again until midnight. So it's not that much of a vacation, but I'm very grateful for the support that Humber's given me over the years to go and do this stuff. And so despite it being busy, I've made sure that we're all set for so my role here as manager of our facility, working with our varsity coordinator, which is a position that I had previously held, and then with the the director and the associate director, we're all ready for all the potential playoff games that we might host through this February leading up to the end of the varsity season. Everything is in place. The event staff and minor officials and all that stuff that are employed, they're all student staff that work under me. Everybody's scheduled and everybody's ready to go. So my Humber stuff is in order, so I can go and be gone from whatever it is, February 15th to 25th, Dominican and Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, Great stuff. And I know, like, I've been at some events now, fortunate enough, obviously, to take it in just with some credential, whether it's qualifier windows or the Vegas showcase. I've seen a lot of the work that goes on to just have the players ready and the coaches ready to do their thing. It's a cool machine, man. It really is. And so, are you getting? You touched on not being available for the window in November in Saskatoon. So now next month is coming around. Are you getting the itch to get back with the program and really excited and do the red and white again?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great honor. I mean, I never thought that I would ever be doing anything like what I've been able to do. I growing up, I was sporty. I played baseball. I played a little bit of basketball, and I got into coaching right away when I was 18, 19. When I finished high school, I started coaching local baseball, and I was actually like a big baseball guy, and ended up at Humber. Just for the academic program that they had here. And one of my high school buddies was on the Humber basketball team and asked me to come to be a team manager. So that's how I got involved with Humber. And then, of course, as I said earlier, got the lucky chance to get connected to Canada Basketball. And yeah, I've been to 25 plus countries, I would say, now with Canada Basketball, and worked with, it's got to be at least 10 head coaches. You'll notice me throughout the interview. I might look up. I've got on my wall here in front of me.
Yeah.
I've got the team photo 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. Like I've got 3 rows. There's 20 framed pictures here of my Canada Basketball time. So I'll be refreshing my memory as I look up here. But
For sure.
yeah, I barely missed since moving up to the senior team. I missed in 2017. I missed the America Cup in Argentina because my girlfriend, well, my wife now, my girlfriend at the time, we went to England for school for the 2017-18 academic year, and so I couldn't go to the America Cup. But then even when I was in England, I flew over to our windows. We had our window in those World Cup qualifying when it first went to that format. And so you mentioned, I said before we came on air, I wasn't at the November window because my son was getting his tonsils out, so I skipped the window. And definitely had FOMO, and I haven't been to Saskatoon yet, and it was I love traveling around Canada too, so I was looking forward to it. But the fatherhood comes first, and a couple of the guys messaged me, Trey Bohanes and Aaron Best sent me a message, and like, "Where are you? This is weird. You're not here. Why aren't you here?" And especially those guys, we've been through so much together. They've been around for such a long time as well, and so committed to the program. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next window, and especially when the stakes are what they are. We're in a group with the host, and one of the 3 of us, Dominican, Mexico, Canada, are not going to advance, and we're obviously in a good position, but we're going into a tough window on the road. We got to get a win, so that gets you the excitement up a little bit. But yeah, I'll never forget. And I still, every time I sing the national anthem, every single time we're lined up, I get goosebumps every single time. And it goes back to my that first trip, that 2010, 6 games in 8 days in 3 countries. I find myself in Ostend, Belgium, like the northwest coast, with our guys lined up. And the first time, I'll never forget what it felt like to hear the national anthem and kind of standing in line with those coaches and players and thinking like, wow, we're here as a group of Canadians representing our country somewhere in the world. It's pretty cool. It's very humbling and fun experience. So I always remember that team was, they had this development team, looking at them right now. So Casey Archibald, Denham Brown, Brady Heslip, DeVoe Joseph, Ryan Bell, Javon Shepard, Jordan Baker, Mark Trazzolini, Kelly Olynyk, Kyle Landry, Ryan Wright, Jim Bandamel, Rans Brempong, and Troy Gottsleek. And the coaching staff was Leo, Renato Pasquale, Greg Francis, and there was a therapist, Jeff Maybe, who lives on the East Coast, works on the East Coast now, and then me as the manager. It was a great trip. Great group of guys, like the names I just named, right? A bunch of really good guys, really good U Sport players and pros, and those are those foundational trips and pieces and guys that were committed to the program going back, way back there.
Yeah, you just name dropped some of my faves for sure, and fortunate that they've joined us, and love their stories. I you touched on just next month there. Do you? I know there's no really telling what the roster will look like. Do you anticipate the guys being pretty similar to what was in Saskatoon for the team? Do you think that's pretty close to what we'll get?
Yeah, I think that's what Canada Basketball and Rowan and Nathaniel Mitchell are looking for, and I know that the commitment comes from both sides. I think most of the players that have shown up in the windows know that they're committing over multiple windows, and that I know the program has been plagued, in the past of no shows and lack of commitment and things like that, and I really do believe that we are on the other side of that, right? I think as people within the program and fans of the program that really give us a lot of support, I think that we could really say that we're on the other side of that, and I would say that it'll be very similar to the team we had, give or take like a player or two probably, because there's always just thinking out loud, there's always a little bit of movement, but there's going to be 14 guys, and we got to go down to Dominican and get ready for that Friday, and then head over to Mexico on the Saturday for the Monday game, and should be a pretty good group. Which again, you look at our record and the way FIBA moving to this new format with these cycles of qualifiers and windows, and what our record is over the 2019 World Cup and the 2023 World Cup. I think it's a great testament to the depth of talent and then the willingness to show up, right?
Yeah, it's like I've mentioned this a lot, but like I love the windows because for a nerd like me, like it's cool to see the scrub boys come in and play every game in that 2023 World Cup qualifier window, and represent. So I just love seeing everybody that comes in and commit, knowing that on that next stage or tournament they may not be a part of it, but it doesn't matter. They're going to fly halfway across the world to play no matter what. And I think the program is very fortunate now, and we are way beyond that, like you said. And so it's just seeing a guy like TBH become a vet in that situation now, and it's really cool. And to see new players come in and get a new opportunity just speaks to the depth. And I know Mike Bartlett has raved about it, and yourself and others now. And I think the program is very fortunate, right?
Yeah, it's fortunate, and it's a sign of a good program and commitment that you'll have that type of character, and up and down with whether it's the coaches who come from, Nathaniel will be coming from China again, right? We've had lots of coaches who take breaks and take risks from their livelihood, with U Sport coaches who take a break at almost the end of their season, playoff time, things like that. So I think it's a great sign that the program is doing the right things, Canada Basketball is doing the right things to create an environment that people really want to be a part of, that they're proud to be part of, that they and they're really looking forward to being a part of. And I'll echo what Phil. I know Phil talked about it too on his. The windows are fun. The windows are a lot of fun. It's a great little hit of like you're kind of getting the band back together, and you see how the guys are with each other. Like these guys love each other too. They've grown up playing against each other. There's a lot of good friendships and relationships there. So for them too, it's an opportunity to connect with their guys. and do something special for their country. So.
You mentioned being a baseball guy. I love baseball too. You got like a favorite player growing up or a favorite team? Just maybe talk about some baseball memories then.
So I was lucky enough. I was born in. So I'm old. I was born in 1979, and so in the 90s we had
We're close. We're close.
The Blue Jays. The boom of the Blue Jays winning the World Series and what that did to the GTA and Ontario and Canadian baseball as a whole. And so in my teenage years, I played there's a pretty good league that in Toronto, High Park Baseball, that I played in. I was I think I'm the same height now that I was when I was 12 years old. So
okay.
I was there was a time where I was dominant, but that changed pretty quickly as everybody caught up and surpassed me, and I stayed the same size. But so I was a pitcher, and I was pretty, a slight build, and I had to rely on my smarts and my control and whatnot. And but funny enough, as I, through that time, just following the Jays and playing, I ended up playing. There was a league called the Connie Mack Baseball League that's pretty big in the U.S. There's probably about 3,000 teams, and they started a division in Ontario. And there's the big dog around here, and is definitely the best baseball program in Canada is the Ontario Blue Jays. They were the dominant force in our league, and I played for a team called the GTA Stars. And man, the Ontario Blue Jays whooped our butts for 2 years. Like, we got no hit like 5 times in the 8 games against them. They had studs. Every guy on their team was getting drafted in Division I and all this. And we were the leftovers. And we finally got them. And it was in the regionals in Battle Creek, Michigan. We'd never beaten them. We were lost 10 or 11 games to them in 2 years. And in the regional, we both got upset in our opening round game, and then we had to play each other on the knockout, the loss side, and we beat them 8-7 in a walk-off. My buddy got let off with a single, stole second. Next guy hit a single up the middle, and he scored, and we beat them. And we ended their season. Anyways, So after that, I started coaching with that team, yeah, my favorite player and the number that I wore. Was Pedro Martinez. He was my, and obviously I couldn't throw hard like Pedro, but I had a pretty good changeup when I played. That was my go-to to kind of keep people off balance. But yeah, I idolized Pedro Martinez. Obviously, was a slight build, and being playing for the Expos, which is at the time the only other Canadian team. So we would see them on TSN. Because it was hard to watch games back then too. Obviously, Canadian television wasn't showing anything and everything. Yeah. But yeah, definitely Pedro Martinez was my favorite baseball player still to this day. So I loved actually just on Netflix watching that Red Sox documentary that they had about the comeback and seeing the behind the scenes. And he was prominent, and he was one of the guys that they had who was reminiscing in that documentary. So it was fun to watch him.
It's cool how baseball, athletes and players, they just transition so well to other sports. They talk about just how not underrated, but how natural athletes are that come out of baseball. And, people do know that, but they transition well to other sports. So people, I don't think, give baseball enough credit in terms of what it takes to play the game,
Yeah, no, I agree. And baseball, soccer, and all kinds of sports, right? I think, and if you were to talk to, you probably find it in your interviews when you're interviewing guys. They probably talk about all the different things they did growing up, right? I think the range of sports, and I think there's a lot of pretty good research on the. Don't get too heavy on the early specialization and stick with a range of things is really, really good. And so. My sporting experiences were lots of fun, doing lots of different things, and obviously wasn't about translating it onto the court, but I think it was about more about working with different people, working in different environments, and learning about team stuff and how to communicate and all that type of stuff. So
yeah, nice. We'll get back into the Canada basketball stuff. I just want to kind of really go with the flow on it, James, just in terms of teams and moments and memories. What about that 2017, like the U19 group winning the
Yeah.
World Cup, historic? I feel like those guys at that age group, in so many ways, and correct me if I'm wrong, almost united the country in this and the program, and really sort of lifted the program because Canada basketball in some ways on the men's side hadn't had a really good moment in a while, and it was just so cool to see. And obviously, Star J was kind of going off, and just cool group and coaching staff, and you were there. Just talk about that team, man.
So, yeah, that I think the things that you brought up, I think I think it was a pretty good validation point for some of what Canada basketball had envisioned and invested going back,
Yeah,
starting with NIDA, right, which was the National Elite Development Academy, Greg Francis and Rowan, and then starting our junior academy program, that they really wanted to make this investment in youth, the age group and the youth level of basketball in Canada. And at the time, I think probably a lot of the attention to that team was who didn't come,
right.
because there were some names, that didn't come. But things are funny like that, right? At that age, and in sports, where the group just kind of comes together. But even going back to the year prior, I can't talk about the year prior. You're going to get a good story here. So
Yeah,
the U18 qualifier for that team, even I'll go back even further. So 2014, we had our U18 was in Colorado Springs. And this was my second summer with Roy, and I think a big credit to Roy for what he was able to do at the age group level, with, again, not only just from a basketball standpoint, but from an overall program management and the people that he got, bringing Kirby Shep and bringing Scott Morrison and Jamie McNeely and people like that into the program. And so we had our qualifiers in Colorado Springs, and Dillon was our leading scorer. He was the leading scorer of the tournament, and we lose in the final to the U.S. It's mildly competitive compared to they were blowing everybody out, but we could see that we were getting there. And I think going into Greece the next year in 2015, our U19s, like, we had some hopes of doing something, possibly medaling, and that team unfortunately ran into, I forget what happened, something in our group stage put us on the side of the bracket with the US. We played the US in the quarters. And that game was bad. They hammered us.
right.
But that group had like a 17-year-old Jordan Henry and a 17-year-old Abu Kijab. Roy had there was some foresight there that those couple guys were involved in that. And Chris Eggy at the time was young, Justin Jackson, right? Like some really young guys on the U19 team. Make sure that's the right year. I think that is. And so, yeah, that team, we got hammered in the quarters. So we end up finishing at top 8, I forget, which was a decent result. Maybe we might have bounced back and finished 5th. Actually, I think we won our 2 games after losing in the quarterfinals. And so finishing 5th at U19, that was a pretty good thing. And we're rolling into, Valdivia, Chile, 2016. Now that team had an interesting roster. Again, we were pretty undersized.
Right.
We had Josip Vrankic, who was nice to see back involved in Saskatoon, and
Yeah,
Nate Darling. But our bigs we had O'Shea Brissett, starting at the 5, and Vrankic starting at the 4. But we had Shea, and we had Abu, and we had Nikhil, we had Lindell. It was a pretty talented backcourt, and we still had, and Jordan Henry was experienced, and Abu experience of being at the World Cup the year before. And we really gave that USA team a push in the final, in that U18 tournament. We were right there we were up in the second quarter. It was close at half. and we had it. It was probably about a 4-point game with 2.5, 3 minutes left. Shai didn't even play the second half. He got hurt. He got assessed at halftime, and he couldn't go in the second half. Abu had a really good game, and Nikhil had a good game. And that, if you look at that 2016 U18 Team USA, like stacked, like the names on that roster was in the USA at age group is always press and run and jump, and they would have Jared Allen or Mo Bamba at the back, and those guys are like 18 years old with 8-foot wingspans sitting back. If you break the press, okay, good luck trying to friggin' attack the rim. Michael Porter Jr., Marco Fultz, Trey Young, Peyton. I don't know if Peyton Pritchard was on that team or not, but probably like 9 out of the 12 guys are in the NBA and names you would know. And we were right there with them. So there was a lot of excitement coming to the 2017 team. That RJ was now, at 17 years old, was a pretty prominent player. But of course, we were dealing with who is coming and who's not coming. And the guys had to make their decisions. And obviously, they were going. A lot of them are going into their Division I freshman year. So they may have had to enroll in school early anyway. So we had a really good training camp with that group. Really solid group of guys, lots of character, lots of togetherness. And we played a pretty good exhibition schedule. I think we went to France, our pre-tournament. We lost to France in that pre-tournament, but played some good teams before going to Egypt. And we knew the path that we had in Egypt. We knew our group, and we knew Spain was in our group. And so that was our second game, and we lost. And so that, again, we knew then and there. I don't know if the players knew, but I knew as a staff, we knew that was going to align us with the United States earlier. Like we were hoping, Canada-USA final.
Right.
We knew from that very second game day on the Sunday that we were going to have to go through the U.S. in the semis. Anyways, we had a day, FIBA schedule, you play 2, you have a day off. So on the Monday, we had a day off. And we took the day off completely. We took the team to the pyramids. We did a day trip, and you could really see the joy. Like these guys were really tight. There was a lot of friendships there. It was really special to see that. We had, Anthony Longpre and Lindell, who had already done a freshman year in college. So they were kind of hanging out together. They roomed together. They had already done 1 year of college. So they were like the older guys on the team. And then the other guys were all like young kids. It was like camp. They were hanging out in each other's room. And they were like, for me, it's like, okay, give me your phones. You guys got to go to bed. But there was just a lot of happiness and joy and togetherness with that group through that week, and getting the job done, and listening to the coaching staff, and that coaching staff coming up with different ways, which is the most fascinating part about FIBA basketball. Is I don't want to get like too philosophical here and preachy, but like part of my travels, one of the things that is amazing to sort of correlate is, there's lots of people on Earth, and lots of different ways of living, and lots of different ways of doing things. And so it's really, really fun for me. This is my academic side of what I'm interested in, like sociologically, is just like seeing how different countries prepare and play the game based on physiological things or cultural things or whatever. And so I think our coaching staff has always done a really good job, and Roy with those teams and those assistants that we had, like figuring out our style of play and making sure that we were adaptable enough to beat these teams, because you're seeing such a different style of play from, different countries, and you're seeing different types of players and things like that when you play these teams. So that week, it all just started to come together after that loss to Spain, and then we had that off day. Then you just started to see like this shift in the guys of really like locking in on what we were doing, and a really firm belief that we could do what we ended up doing. And it's just like the little moments, the little things you see is like, how are they moving together? How are they eating together? They're not going anywhere without each other, and they're really, really focused. And so we get through the group stage. We finish second. Spain goes 3-0. We go 2-1. We have our round of 16 game. It's a blowout. And then we come to the Friday quarterfinal as France. And of course, they had beaten us in that pre-tournament. So there was extra focus from our guys that day. It was a tough game. I mean, I think we only ended up winning by 5 or 6 or something, but it was close at half, and we came out in the third quarter. And the first play, we had a RJ back cut, drop off, dunk, and kind of you see the French guys are, and then we just really went on a run and sort of took the score up, and it ended up being close at the end. But that was a really good win. And then on the Saturday, again, like our guys completely locked into, at that time, 2016, 17, Canada's on the come up. RJ's in the rankings. Wiggins had been in the rankings. We had Bennett. There's a lot of trash talk from the United States. I mean, there always will be, but our guys had a bit of a chip on their shoulder. They really wanted to prove that we were good enough, that we belonged, that we were ready to beat them. And the United States players were hanging out by the pool all day in the hot Egyptian sun, thinking that they were going to take care of us that night. And so funny enough, I brought the wrong uniforms to that game.
Oh, no. FIBA
was very upset with me. My brain went North American. So when you look at a bracket and normally a higher seed is the home team.
Okay.
In my brain, thinking from a North. So I'm like, oh, higher seed, they're going to wear their white uniforms. We're going to wear red. But in FIBA, it's just about which, how the bracket shapes out and which team is listed first and which team is listed second. I whatever was happening that day, I didn't pay attention to that. So it was a good ride from the hotel to the arena. And at that time, there was a lot of security and a lot of, stuff in place for moving the teams, because there had been unfortunately, 6 months prior to the Worlds, there was an attack on a church and stuff like that in Cairo. So there was some heightened security measures in place. So it wasn't a possibility for me to go back to the hotel. So there I am with the game commissioner, and the legendary Sean Ford from USA Basketball on the other side. And he thinks I'm trying to pull some shit on them by some uniform head games or whatever, and I've just flat out screwed up. But he's like, the commissioner is asking them, well, can you guys go change in your whites? And he's like, no, I'm not going to play. But we're not changing because the guys are warming up. It's disruptive. You got to make them go in and change their uniform. So let's just play red against blue. So you go and watch the highlights of that game. It's like dark colors versus dark colors, which is a big no-no in FIBA. They hate that for their visual representation. But I was like, I had screwed that up. But yeah, I mean, that game, obviously, I've watched that game a few times, reminiscing. And now, I'm 7 years, 8 years on from it. It's fun to go back because I have more appreciation and more knowledge for the game and things like that. And what a great job we did. And everybody, I think that game was just a really great representation. I think every single guy who played made a really positive contribution into that game. And we were just so good and kicked their butts. And so one of the funniest things was we had, you go watch the tape, you see Abu Kijab, who's a fun guy. He's a fun guy. He's a funny character.
He seems like it.
He's a very fun guy to have around your team. But he's playing his butt off. And in that game, he cramps up towards the end of the game. We're lined up and he has to go to the bench, and he chugs a sports drink. And probably way too fast, way too much. And then he has to sub off, and he's lying down, in front of the bench. And then he gets up and he sits on the bench. And then you see all of a sudden he turns and just it all comes up. And you see the whole bench, the guys just scatter and run down to And it's just like somebody dropped the bomb and everybody just goes right. So it's really funny, when you watch the playback of the game and it's going back and forth and it's intense. It's down the stretch.
Yeah.
The end of the game, RJ's fouled out. We're shuffling guys in and out, and we're trying to finish the game off and make free throws and make plays. And you see our bench, like a bomb goes off. Everybody's flying everywhere, which takes me back to 2016. I missed. This is one of my. I'll finish the 2017. So yeah, we win that game, and we knew we had a lot of belief, and I think the next day was a bit of a foregone conclusion. Italy was behaving. They were really just happy to be there. They had an incredible overtime win against Spain and the other 7. Like, we thought we were going to play Spain and have a rematch in the final, and we knew we could. We knew we were going to beat Italy, and I think they knew that we were going to beat them. So it was kind of anticlimactic, but what a feeling! But it's a whirlwind after you don't even really get to celebrate. It ends and you're paraded here and you got to line up here, and I'm running around and making sure everybody's they're lined up in their number order, and we got to be here. And they do the presentations, and by the time we get back to the hotel, it's past midnight. And not necessarily like celebrating, you want to have coaches want to have a drink, but even to get food, like at this hotel, everything shut down at midnight. And then we had to be at the airport probably at 7 a.m. So, we ended up kind of just, I think not really getting to have like a group celebration. You just kind of start the machine. Okay, press play. Okay, it's travel day. It's pack everything. Let's load everything. Let's get to the airport. Let's get through customs and get on the plane and get home. And, we had a really nice reception at Pearson Airport, which is pretty cool to think back that, there were a bunch of reporters and fans and family and parents, which is really, really nice. And then Ken, the basketball, did a good job after the fact of, we got them rings, which I was really pushing for, that these kids deserved, was winning a world championship, right? Like, it was really, really special. Let's get these guys a championship ring and have a dinner. And so I think that summer, the following summer, we had a Windows game against Dominican, a senior men's game, and we brought a bunch of those guys out at halftime and honored them and all that. So I mean, that's something like those guys will never, that's the first gold medal, and they'll have that together forever. That's something that they accomplished. But so one of the fun stories I want to tell, again, you're talking about the nuggets of the things that I've been, and operations guys have to see, have to deal with. Obviously these guys, we didn't get a chance to celebrate, right? And maybe some of them that night just had some of the mini bar stuff. And it's a pretty strict country for things like that. And so I had to be quick on my feet, thinking when we were in the lineup at the airport the next morning, one of the players unfortunately got sick. And so our team attaché was, what is going on? What's happening here? And he was yelling at me, and he and I said, well, no, don't you remember the game? Our whole team is sick. The guy threw up. I had to think quickly on my feet. I said, yeah, remember the guy threw up the other day? I said, everybody on our team is sick. He's just not feeling well. And they're like, no, it was alcohol. And we're arguing and getting closer and closer to the security. I'm just trying to get us through security. I'm like buffering, I'm thinking these Egyptian security guys are going to take one of our players away.
Right.
And I had to think quickly on my feet, and I said, no, everybody's sick. And then we got to the security line, and it's like, let's just get the heck out of here.
DePoe to the rescue.
Yeah.
That's
not even my best DePoe to the rescue. So
we love the Nuggets, man.
So 2016, we play that in Valdivia, Chile, which is way down there. Like, you fly Santiago, Chile, and then you got to go further south. So we're close to the bottom of South America. It's way down there. So on the way back, we have a layover. We have a pretty lengthy layover if the Valdivia to Santiago, Toronto. We've got a long layover in Santiago. So this is 16, 17, 18-year-old guys. So Roy says, let's arrange something. Let's go into the downtown or whatever. So I make an arrangement in the airport. We've got a luggage storage. We put all our stuff in the luggage storage. We've got a car service. I get a fleet of vans, takes us into the downtown square, and the guys have to stay in groups. And we're like, okay, you got 2-3 hours, guys, whatever. Here's where we're meeting. Go do whatever and meet back here. So we all break off in our groups, and everybody's with a group. Get back, the meeting point. Everything's good. Count heads. Everybody's there. We load up. Back to the airport, get our luggage. Our flight's in Santiago to Toronto is in about 2 hours, whatever. We're getting ready to go through the gate. The one player says to me, James, I don't have my passport.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, listen, anybody who's listening who's going to work with our age group teams, and I think Scott Waith he probably has done an incredible job and has never made this mistake that I made, but you just collect their passports. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You got to hold all the passports. And so everybody goes, and I had to stay with the player. And we're running around the airport trying to figure it out. And I'm now it's the evening, and so I hired these vehicles from a guy. He was, standing in one area advertising. And luckily he had a scar on his face. So I'm like, I'm going to recognize this guy if I find him again. It's easy, but I couldn't find him. So I had to call back up to Toronto to Matt York, or it wasn't Matt York. I think it was David Grudman, who was the coordinator of basketball operations. And I'm like, Dave, I got to stay. Can you authorize me? Like, I got to get a hotel. He's like, yeah, just do what you got to do. So I'm standing in the airport with the player. There were these two Chilean guys who had traveled to Valdivia to watch. They were just basketball fans, and they were behind our bench the whole week cheering for Canada. And they're like, hey, James from Canada. And I was like, I need your help. Can you guys help? They showed me where the Canadian consulate was. There was an agent from our airline was also trying to be very helpful. But yeah, I couldn't. So I started looking at the process of how do I get an emergency passport. Now, this particular Canadian player, he had immigrated to Canada. So his birth certificate from where he came from was not in great condition. And I had a very poor scan of this birth certificate, and I'm trying to gather all the documentation I need to try to do this emergency passport. But I just had a feeling. I'm like, I'm not going to push the button on this emergency passport. We got to find the original passport. We got to find this driver guy. It's got to be in the van. So we get the 2 hotel rooms. We stay over, wake up first thing the next morning. He and I go back to the airport. We start running up and down the airport, back and forth, trying to find the guy. And finally, we get close to mid-morning, lunchtime, we find the guy. And I go up to him. I say, hey, do you remember me? Team yesterday, we hired you. And he looks at me. He says, no. Like, what are you talking about, man? Like, no, please. And he's like, no. You hired me to go downtown, but you were supposed to come back with my guys, but you came back with somebody else. So who I paid wasn't him.
Oh.
I guess he has guys that work for him. And I said, well, no, we came back. It was your same guys. And then he realized his drivers scooped his money. So he was pissed.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to find the passport. I was like, okay. So that day, that particular driver the van that this player will happen to be in, he tracked the guy down. The guy was at home sleeping. Van was in his driveway. The guy goes out, he looks under the seat, and his passport was there. And the guy brought it to the airport, and the capo or whatever you want to call him. He came and he gave me the passport, and I gave him a tip, and he said, no, he didn't want my money. He's like, I'm going to go get my money from my guys that didn't give me the money yesterday that they were supposed to. And I was like, okay. And then the player and I got on the same flight we would have been on, but 24 hours later. And
Right.
got the original passport without having to go through the emergency passport, another 3-day wait. I would have had my vacation in Santiago, Chile that I didn't really want to have, but that was a crazy one. Those are the things that we have to deal with sometimes.
That's great, man. It never ends. And, that's what people don't realize. It's just the connectedness to make things, go and work. And the players just got to hopefully you and that player still have a good laugh about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. We do.
Listen, the 2023 FIBA World Cup, huge moment for the program, the senior men's national team. The qualification for that tournament and to get that result was, 2 or 3 years running. We talked about that with the windows. That such a special group. I think anyone that loves the program remembers it vividly. And I was watching the tournament in a few different cities that summer on a bit of a holiday, and was, I guess, two parts, James. As a group for the team and everyone involved, players, yourself, and coaches, was there a different feeling that summer, knowing that something was very possible here, on the verge of something special? And then on your side, on the ops side, like because the travel with that group and that team was a beast in terms of what you have to do to prep and plan. Like, just take me through that as well, because it was over to where was that? Spain was the exhibition, wasn't it? Yeah. So Spain was the exhibition stuff, and then to Jakarta, and then over to Manila. Like, just talk about that group and try to answer both, man.
So again, shout out to Glenn Grunwald, shout out to Bartlett, and Rowan, and the people that are shaking the trees and pushing the government and donors and all of these people who have recognized the need, but wanting to support the program, because definitely the budget has increased in my time, and then that's allowed us to do all of these types of things that you just talked about, to have more human power. So me as a team manager, having the support of our coordinator of basketball operations, Kayla, our equipment manager, Abby, our interns that we've had over the summer. Like, it's incredible to have our staff that keeps coming together every summer, Sebastian and Phil and Doc, Sam, Jason Meehan, Christian Vargas, Jacob Gallant. Like, we talk to each other so much, and we work with each other in all these different circumstances that we can continually improve. And the planning for that World Cup, Sebastian did a great job of working with Bartlett, and then obviously Nick was involved at the time trying to build our schedule. And it was an incredible exhibition schedule. So with Germany as well, right? Prior to Spain, the chance to play Germany, who obviously ended up winning, but we played them twice. Like, you can't get a better exhibition schedule than that. And so for us to be able to move the way we did, it takes the money, and it takes we had some charters. A lot of us who have been around for a while, we didn't let it affect, or we didn't express it, but our first charter, Toronto to Germany, we had an issue.
Right.
There was an issue. We should have had an easy travel day going from Toronto to Germany, but there was an issue with the flight. They had to send a different plane, the company, whatever the charter company was, and we had to stop in Iceland. So we had to go Toronto to Iceland, and in Iceland you have to get off and go in a booth, and there's like this booth on the tarmac, and they're stamping your passport, and then you get back on and you keep going. So it's just one of those things. It's disruptive to, if guys want to sleep overnight, you have this break right in the middle. it was at the time of year where it was, I think we landed, it was like 11 o'clock at night, but there was very little sundown at the time.
Yeah.
So it was still twilight. We get back on and we get to Germany, and we play, those couple exhibition games, really, really good schedule. We played an exhibition game in Germany, and then a tournament where we played Germany in the final. And that's when we beat them at a crazy overtime game, which was awesome. And then we went to Spain, and again, the charter to Spain, there was an issue. A bird had flown into the engine, broke the engine, and they were fixing it. We had already arrived in Spain, and we were in Spain for the week, and that same plane was doing other trips, and it was supposed to come back and get us, and it had run into that issue elsewhere, and so then it was delayed coming. So we had this travel day in Spain, which was, I go to the airport with a couple of our people, our staff, and then the plane is getting delayed. And so Jordy did a great job, and Bartlett and the team of guys and whatever, they're like, okay, well, we're just going to go do something. So they actually had a social day. Jordy had a friend open up an establishment that they could go and have some drinks and food and play some music. So it was actually really cool. They had a really good team bonding day. And I'm stuck at the airport all day with our big, massive, 50 team bags and like 60 personal bags or whatever it was. So we were probably traveling with almost like probably over 100 total bags that I'm tracking and managing with our equipment manager and all that. And, but yeah, the ability of, with the support of all these people that have come in and been involved in the program, we've moved to this type of model. Like, we've got higher level players that are used to moving a certain way, and we want to afford them these same, niceties. And this is how we should be moving as a national team program. But like the guys, that group of guys, you could see right from the start, clearly there's serious talent in the group.
Yeah.
And I think the style of play was very intriguing for FIBA, and our ability to defend, and especially with like that with Dillon at the four guard lineup. So it's like there's all these fascinating things happening that you're seeing right from the beginning of training camp, that the coaching staff can coach and has this ability to like have all these talented tools at their disposal to kind of figure out, what we can do, and to start to see that come together. And especially for me, like, having been with a lot of our guys from their teenage years, and I see the men that they are now, that they've become now, and their fathers and their husbands, and these guys are just wonderful guys. So it's all this really great coming together of them as people and them as basketball players, and it's all happening in front of us here. So yeah, there was definitely a sense of, we can really do something here at this World Cup. And to be honest, like, a lot of us are, trust me, don't take this the wrong way, but like,
yeah,
we missed a chance to win the World Cup. Like we a lot of us feel that we definitely could have won that World Cup. We had a bad day and a bad game against a great basketball country in Serbia. So don't get me wrong, bronze medal is unbelievable, and it will be unbelievable forever. But it was also a missed opportunity, and I think that's okay. I think that within our program, we need to have that level of expectation and that hunger to do better and understand what are some of the things that we could do better. And so, yeah, that entire, going from Germany to Spain, and we had a great time in Spain. It was really, really good, and I think it also really helped integrate. Jordy's a very personable guy. He's a fun guy. He's a young coach. He did a really good job of, coming into the circumstance. It was really tough, I would imagine, for him personally. And he's got to establish and create relationships and trust with everybody. And I think, he did as good a job as anybody could have in that situation. And we had a really good time in Spain. And then getting out to Jakarta, we really locked in. And I think one of the big differences from, this is not a criticism of anything. It's just the context and circumstance of things. Like, Jakarta and Manila was very like, you're there, you're on the other side of the world, and it's just us.
Yeah.
Compared to Paris was crazy. Like there's just the magnitude of the Olympics is crazy. I'm sure you'll ask me about it, but so I think that was a really really fun part about Jakarta and Manila was that like, and even the pre stuff in Germany and Spain, like just the guys hanging out with each other, how much they played cards together, how much they stuck together and did things together that entire time, was really, really great to see. And it certainly helped us, being able to go and play so well and win those tight games and get out there. And yeah, and the World Cup, like my 2019 World Cup experience wasn't great. Obviously, it wasn't great for Canada. To get back to the World Cup and have such a strong team and see our leaders here. Obviously Shai is what he is. When you have a guy like Shai, you can win any game, and and then Dillon was playing at such a high level, and everybody else really fell into their roles really really well in that tournament. So yeah, it was pretty special watching those games and going back to see just like all the buildup of like, group of death and France and this, and then we came out and just absolutely pumped them, right?
Smashed
Like,
them. Yeah.
just to see that our guys were really like, that's how serious that they wanted to be about this tournament. Yeah, it was pretty incredible to see that.
What? Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I wonder, because the result against Spain, like the finally qualifying for an Olympic Games, and the impact of that. Do you think maybe the guys just emotionally had a bit of a dump where it went to the rest of the tournament? We talk about, they were disappointed they didn't win it, but I just remember the emphasis on it, right? And for someone like me that's really loves, like I go back to Rose team in 2000 in Sydney, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard different situations, so I don't know maybe if that was
Well,
not an issue but a factor.
no, it's just the ebb and flow of like, it's the international tournaments. It's really tough. Like even look, you go to our loss to Brazil. I think the entire world was probably like, what the heck are these guys doing losing to Brazil when all they needed to do was win to qualify? But that's just one of those things that happen where they needed to survive, and that's an America's rival playing spoiler, coming with a game plan, executing it on a night, and you have an off night and crazy stuff happens, right? And that obviously set up the do or die against Spain, which was the craziest game. I can't even. It was so emotional to be involved in that game, and thinking back to, it's like an out of body experience almost, where you just you're playing the best program in the world, second best with results, but probably number one in like a program culture, FIBA basketball, right? How their country develops the sport and runs their leagues and everything like that, right? And it's their 50th anniversary. There's all these things, like the Spanish Federation's 50th anniversary, and all these things are coming into play. We've got a Spanish coach who used to be involved in their program. I mean, maybe not everybody's thinking about that stuff, but I am. What a game! I mean, just an incredible, emotional basketball game of two countries that are certainly talented and playing the game the right way. And what we had to go through them, and we had to, until you experience it, you can't have the experience of it. And our guys responded so well to that up and down game and crazy calls and I obviously, your question, like, about, we knew what the goal was. The number one goal was to qualify for the Olympics,
right?
100%. But right there beside it was, we can win this thing. We can definitely win a medal. And our guys knew how good they were. They were confident, and it never wavered, even not for a second. Even against Brazil, I didn't see And never have I really seen our guys like, speak to each other a certain way or speak to the coaching staff a certain way that wasn't, part of making us better or making sure that we were on task or on top of what we were trying to accomplish as a group. Like, you can talk to each other a certain way. Obviously, sometimes it can get to a certain level, right? But that's when you have trust and you have connectedness and all that stuff, like, you take it the right way. And our guys were so locked into that, even like whatever it was, down 11, down 12, going into the fourth to Spain. And yeah, I remember like when we're coming back and getting closer and closer, and you're really locked into the game, and then there's the release of emotion when Dillon hits a game tying three, and then Shai hits that obviously incredible shot on the pullback, step back, right? Like, to take the lead, and then right to the end, obviously Spain fights to the end, and I think it was a Abrinas like from half court, and he hits the rim, of course, like. but we end up winning by 3. And then I turned and I grabbed Nathaniel Mitchell, hugged him. I turned and grabbed Nate Bjorkgren, and you just kind of go in a zone, like you turn and you're supposed to go shake hands. And I grabbed Nate Bjorkgren. I said, "We're going to the fucking Olympics."
Yeah.
He's like, is that what this is? Like, we just did it. We just did it. And I said, yeah. We just qualified for the Olympics, and it's emotional. And then you get in the huddle after, and I started saying it to most everybody. And I think it was funny. I think it was Dwight. Dwight says, "Fuck James." He always swears. His favorite, Dwight's favorite word is the F word for this. But he's like, "Fuck James." He's like, "You fucked me up, man." He's like, "You're making me emotional." Because I just started telling the guys, I'm like, we just did it. We just qualified. And and then part of it, again, like, you just got to go through the experience. I think going from Jakarta to Manila, we shared the plane with the Latvians, which was a lot more fun than sharing it with like Brazil or Spain. I'll tell you that much, because the two of us had advanced, and we had to share the charter that FIBA provided to get from Jakarta to Manila for the quarters. And so Sebastian and I had a couple of drinks with their operations counterparts on that side of things. But obviously, we had played them in our group and whatever, and they had such a great group of fans there. And playing Slovenia in the quarters, I think we were pretty confident. And obviously, it was a interesting game, back and forth, high scoring, 100-90. I did have a moment there when so Dillon got an early tee. And then, in FIBA, if you get a second of anything, you're ejected. And then, of course, he gets ejected. And
but he took Luka with him.
I had a moment of looking up. I looked up at the flag. I looked up at our flag, and I was just like, please. I had some moment on the bench. I was just like, please. And then, like, a minute later, Luka got his second tee, and he got ejected. And I was like, okay, we're good. But yeah, and then you know what, like, I don't think our guys looked past anything or looked beyond anything. Playing Serbia in a World Cup semifinal, like, that's a basketball nation and country and a very good team and program. And we were bad, and we got beat. They beat us. We were just bad, and they beat us that day. And that happens. And then even it's actually incredible to see that we were able to bounce back the next day and play the way we did. Like, we dominated the U.S. in that game, like until they had the crazy shot at the end with Mikal Bridges and sent it over. But then again, even after all of that, we came into the huddle between regulation and overtime, and I forget who it was, but one of the players, he just said, "We're good." Like, just looked at every guy and was like, "We're good," and there was no wavering from how what the goal was and how confident and how good that they thought they could be to win that game.
Yeah, incredible tournament. And I think, you see a guy like Shai kind of really be at the forefront of the program to, with his place in the game in this country too. And obviously he's, we're biased, but he's going to win MVP this year and for the Thunder. Yeah. And just, and then you see a guy like Dillon Brooks really embrace the program. I guess, if you can, just touch on Shai as a leader, and then just Dillon as a teammate, because I know he's an incredible teammate. Loves being a part of the program. Takes the young players underneath his wing. Just talk about those guys maybe and their impact, James.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and Shai is a great story. I think he's had a great upbringing from his family, instilled the values in him of how you see his character and you see his work. And I think, he's such a personable guy. We see his interviews and we see his social media and things like that, and he embodies all of it in how he prepares and how he plays. And going back to him as a teenager, and Jay having the foresight to take him to that qualifier and have him involved in the group, and seeing our program, and then of course like his D1 commitment and recommit to Kentucky. Like obviously all of a sudden he just skyrockets in talent, and Sam Presti obviously having the foresight to trade for him, right? He just leads. He's very steady. His demeanor, his calming presence, his personality, I think is just a really, really good fit for describing he's just a really good Canadian basketball player, Canadian person, and representative of the best of our country.
Right.
And he's growing into there's still room to grow as a young man into his leadership, I'm sure. We have to remember that these guys are all going through all these varying experiences, right? And we just need to continue getting experience together. And I think we're going to see the best is yet to come when it comes to Shai in a OKC NBA uniform and a Canada Basketball FIBA uniform. We're still going to see more. But yeah, his work ethic, I know Phil told the story too. It's the same for me. I get the phone call too when he needs to, when we're in training camp, and the team is at the hotel and we have practice at 10:30, but Shai he's going at 8:30 or 9, and he's coming. If he's gone home, even if he's gone home to Hamilton that night, he's coming, and so I got to get over there and make sure that everything is right. His stuff is there, his practice gear is there, and he's very consistent in how he prepares and how he works on his game and the different things that he's been able to do. It's incredible to be a part of and watch. My story, I've never seen anybody train like that. I saw Steve. Right. Steve was with us in one of the trips I did to Europe with the senior team when Steve was in his GM role with Rowan. But Steve was still, I think, in the twilight of his NBA career. He's still training, and we had Phil Handy as an assistant, and so Phil Handy's obviously a great NBA trainer and skills trainer and coach, and he was doing workouts with Steve, and I'd never seen anything like that in my life, and until I saw how Shai puts his work in. So wow. It's definitely a testament to everything we're seeing happening, and I think there's more to come. Dillon, funny enough, I was going through some old Humber stuff. Humber has long hosted the Humber Classic high school tournament.
Okay.
And so when I go through the history, we have records of, leading scorer and MVP going way back to the 90s. And so there's obviously some legendary names when I pull up that sheet of, great old GTA basketball players. And I didn't realize that I gave Dillon the MVP when he was at Henry Carr. Okay. And so I sent him a photo of 2012 or whatever it was, Humber Classic MVP Dillon Brooks, and he laughed. And then 2 weeks later, he sent me a photo of his MVP trophy. He still had it. I don't know where he found it, in his condo or his house here in Toronto or whatever. It was pretty funny. But yeah, that's cool. Dillon. Dillon is great. He is, I've been lucky enough to know him since he was young, right? When he was with our U18, U19, and he is the exact type of person that personifies, you love to have him on your team and you hate to play against him. He's one of the best teammates. He's very caring for everybody. You know, a lot of what we see is his shtick. It's probably like his WWE persona.
Yeah.
That's what he does as a basketball player because he knows that's what's successful for him. But it just more impressively to see like when we were at the age group, like I said, he was the leading scorer in 2014 in Colorado Springs. So there's always been something there. I know he scored a little bit when he was at Oregon, but in the NBA, he's had a bit of a different role. But for us, he's been reliable.
Yeah.
And yeah, so and again, another guy putting in tons of work. He's, you know, he's taking care of himself. You know, he's a bit older now. He's very smart. He's taking care of his body and doing all those things that he needs to do as a pro. And yeah, when he's wonderful to have with our program. He's fun. He's caring. He keeps things fun. He's always on me about what music I'm playing during practice and stuff. So he's great to have with our program.
Yeah, I just think we've kind of needed a guy like him to kind of jump to the forefront a little bit, just in terms of a little bit of an edge and toughness, and that's been really cool to see. And there's something about Dillon when he puts on the red and white, man. He goes into this like sniper mode, lethal score. It's just like senior men's national team. Dillon Brooks is a different beast, man, and I think we're lucky. Can I ask a couple fun ones before I get
Of
you out of?
course.
Yeah, and man, really appreciate this. Who's in your opinion, who's an underrated player for the program? Maybe someone over the years that has done a lot, played a lot of games, always committed consistently, and maybe just doesn't get enough love, if you will.
Well, I'm very close to the Edgem family. Both of Melvin's younger brothers played here at Humber.
Right.
Well, two of the three younger brothers played here at Humber. So I always gravitate towards giving Melvin his flowers. Just
For sure.
the true warrior of the program. But yeah, Melvin knows how I feel about him, and he definitely deserves a lot of respect, along with a number of the guys. You'll hear the same names all the time, like Tommy and Phil and Aaron Best, Kaysa Keene, right? Even Brady Heslip Pryor, who showed up a ton, and I think, you know, was for a long time was the most capped player. Kyle Landry, who's now getting involved with helping coach a little bit, like, you know, love Kyle. But I think now in this group, and maybe more prominent, I think Lu deserves, like, Lu's unbelievable, and his character and his, obviously we see the way he plays, the tenacity with which he plays, and he's such a good guy, man. That's the thing. I mean, it's hard to pick one guy because all of our guys are like, they're just wonderful guys, man. They're so kind to us. They're so caring and so proud to represent Canada. And but I think Lu, you know, is gonna have, you know, he's on a great run in the last couple of games with OKC right now too. But he's just, from what his life is and how his arc to getting to where he is now, and I think, you know, there's a lot more for him. But he's such a good, and man, like, you even look at down the stretch of that France game where we were like, I don't even remember the play. Like, he dove on the floor.
Yeah.
For a loose ball. Like, that's just a guy whose heart is like for our program so much.
Love it.
Beyond all these guys, like, Lu's the best. He's awesome. All our guys, I can't even. It's too hard to pick, man. I love all our guys. They're great.
Well, then the next question might be a little tough. So, who's James DePoe's top or favorite five for Canada basketball?
Top or favorite five?
No pressure.
I'm gonna mix it up. I did this in one other space, other pod. I'll mix it up. So I'm gonna go with, well, I'll still have Shai. I had him in my other one because he's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put Greg Francis in. I didn't talk about it here, but so Greg, I went to Oakwood. Greg went to Oakwood. He's older than me, but when I was in grade 8, Greg signed my shoe.
Nice.
I remember idolizing Greg and watching, because I had older brothers used to take me to watch Oakwood's games, and So I'm going to put Greg in my top 5 because I used to love watching Greg play, and may he rest in peace. We miss him for sure. He was just a great ambassador to our game and our country. Who else do I want to put in there in this one? I'll put Tommy.
Yeah, nice.
At the 3, to balance us out, give us something on a little bit on both sides of the ball, a little versatility. Who else can I put in? I'll put Kelly, man, like, because FIBA Kelly and everything, like I mentioned, that 2010 team, like I look at this picture on my wall of Kelly, like 2010, he was a baby, right? Like this is like, and I've been lucky enough to be here this entire time, his arc all the way through. But yeah, I'll put Kelly in, and who can I go to? I'm trying to put together a regular 5 here.
It can be anybody, man. Doesn't have to be a big.
Who can I also put in?
It's hard. There's a lot of great names.
So hard, man. I'm trying to look at these faces, and who do I want to give love to for something that they did?
If anyone's listening and not watching the YouTube episode, James is just kind of searching around his office here, but
yeah, I'll just go with Dillon in the end here. So what did I say? I have Shai, Greg, Tommy, Kelly, Dillon.
Love it, man. Love it. That's we got a good generational thing going on there, and
yeah,
I think that'd be a tough 5. James, man, anyone you'd like to see us join us on Canada Hoops who's got a good Canada basketball story that should sit down with us, man?
Well, yeah, certainly any of these players. I don't know if you've probably had Trey, right? You've had Trey.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate, man. Shout out everybody. Yeah, Trey's joined us. I mean, Phil and Tommy. We talked about Mel.
Have you had Aaron Best?
No, and I don't know if Aaron will listen to this or see this, but I have reached out to him because it was who was it the last? I think it was Trey has talked about him, and I'll get Aaron on, man.
I can definitely. I'll bug him about that. But yeah, I know Phil mentioned Meeks. Like I'll bug Meeks. There's so many guys. There's so many good stories. Like I saw you just had Josh Luenberg on the other day, like or recently, right? Like I think Eric Smith, who works in broadcast for the Raptors here. Like Eric is great. He's actually a Humber grad, so he comes around once or twice a year. Just a great basketball story, right? Of a guy who's involved in hoops in our country and how he got there. That would be a good one too.
Yeah, we'll work on that. Man, any shout outs or thank yous? I appreciate this.
Well, just honestly, like it's just too many. There's so many people. Like I've been so lucky. All the people that helped me, like Daryl Glenn for my first recommendation to Canada Basketball, Doug Fox, who helped me, kept giving good graces to keep going. Shout out to Sebastian and Phil for our late night game rewatches. I know Phil touched on that with you. We always we're like kind of the 3 musketeers, and those guys are we keep each other sane on the road. Dr. Phil Pott, he's our 4th. We're always making sure wherever we go, we're exploring and going out for dinners and stuff like that. And of course, my family, my wife, my son.
Yeah.
Lots of people to be thankful for who allow me to keep doing this. I don't know how long I'm going to keep doing it for, but
hopefully as long as you can, man, that it all works out in all areas of your life, man. I mean, just your impact has been big. I know, like I said, like a lot of past guests have shouted you out and said, man, James is a guy you got to sit down and talk to. And the conversation today was very evident, man. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Matty. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I want to thank James DePoe for pulling up. Thank you for listening. Remember to rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. Check out our YouTube channel. Hit us up on Instagram and x.com. Keep supporting Canada basketball, and we will see you on the next episode. Appreciate